What is going on, guys? We are back playing some more Surviving with Create. And today, guys, we're going to be setting up the mechanical harvester, which is a block that allows us to automatically harvest fully grown crops when it goes over them, and then it replants the seeds for those crops wherever they were harvested from. So it's great. It allows for really simple automated farming, and the block itself is really easy to work with. It doesn't really require anything other than making the mechanical harvester and placing it down. Unfortunately, that's a little bit of a lie though, because while that is perfectly fine, that's how you set it up, it will sit on the ground like a lump on a log and do absolutely nothing until you set up a contraption around it that will allow it to function. And that's something we've really never talked about with the Create mod so far, and it's one of the major parts of the Create mod that is so cool. And so what I mean by that is, if you do not know, in this mod, you're pretty much given basically building blocks of a machine. And each block does its own thing. You have pistons, you have chassis, all these different things that you can combine together to make machines that do whatever you want. And you can do anything from automated farming, automated mining, all these different things that you can set up however you see fit. And it's really awesome. It's basically like you're playing with Legos. And so we are going to have to do that today with a bunch of different blocks to get this farm to function the way that we want it to. And really, the mechanical harvester is the easiest part of that to set up. But like I said, it will do absolutely nothing if you do not properly set up the automated machine around it to make it function. So there's a lot of stuff that we have to do today, and I understand if that description was extremely vague, because honestly, it's supposed to be, because you can do so much different stuff with it, and we will throughout this series. This is really just us dipping our toes in and kind of getting an introduction to it. So you can see that there's a lot of different stuff in this chest right here, because we are going to be working with a lot of different blocks today and a lot that we have never worked with before. So a couple things that we've already worked with that we can take out of here would be things like the encased fan and the magma block and the lever for that. We have some gearboxes in here. We have a chest for collecting stuff, and we need an iron hoe. I guess I actually made two of these. Well, that's unfortunate. But we need an iron hoe or any kind of hoe that you want, and some bone meal to work with. I'll just dump this up here because we only need one of them. So that's really all that we need that we've already worked with. The rest of the stuff is going to be pretty new stuff. So there's pretty wide variety of things that we need. I'm not going to go over each individual item I'm pulling out from here. Actually, we'll put a couple of these back until we finish the crafting. But the first thing that we are going to need to make is going to be a mechanical piston. So this is what's going to actually make our machine move and function properly. And so this one is a slightly different version from a regular piston, and we'll get into that a little bit, but basically you're going to have to supply it with rotational power, which is why we have the encased fan, and you're going to be able to add some of these piston extension poles to it to make it go further than just extending a single block. So we're going to craft one of those. And I already made some piston extension poles because we are going to need exactly 5 for the setup today. If you want to make it bigger, you're going to need more, but then you're also going to have to adjust a couple of the redstone things that we are going to be working with too. So the next thing we are going to have to make, and we can make this sticky now or later, but the next thing we're going to have to make is going to be a linear chassis. And basically what this is a configurable base block connecting structures for movement. So we're going to be putting these with the piston, and it's going to allow us to use one piston to move a bunch of different blocks. So if you see when it's moved, it moves all attached chassis with the same orientation and a column of blocks within its range. Blocks will only be pulled if the chassis face is sticky. So we are going to need to make some of these sticky for this build, which is why we've got some of the slime balls here. But we're going to make the linear chassis, and we are going to make 6 of those. I think we only actually need 5 for today, but you make them in sets of 3. Then we are also going to need to make the mechanical harvester itself, which looks pretty cool. We're going to be making 3 of them. Again, this is going to be really determined by the size of your farm. You are going to need it lengthwise. It is going to be determined by how many piston extension poles you have. And the width of it is going to determine how many mechanical harvesters you need, because the piston is going to push the mechanical harvesters across your farm, and that's how it's going to be harvested. So we are going to, I guess I clicked off of it. So we are going to craft 3 of these. So we got our mechanical harvesters right there. The next thing we're going to have to make then is going to be redstone contact. And so basically what this does, it emits redstone power in pairs, and it's movable with mechanical pistons or bearings. So basically we're going to make 2 of these, and it is going to have one of them on the piston that's moving, and it's going to have one of them at the 5 block away stop point, which is going to tell us that our piston is fully extended, and that's when it's going to have to start retracting. So we're going to need to use redstone contacts for that. So we got 2 of them. Then we are also going to need to make a gear shift, and I think that should be right here. And so this is going to rotate the direction for the connected shafts based on a redstone signal. And so this is important because it's what's going to allow us to extend our piston, and then when it receives a redstone signal, retract the piston. So we're going to grab the gear shift out of there. Then I think this is the last thing, is going to be the redstone link. Now we're going to make 2 of these, and you read it, and I'm going to clarify one thing really quick right now because this confused me. Is this says its endpoints for wireless redstone connections can be assigned frequencies. Basically, the redstone link can function as both the transmitter and the receiver, and you change it by, I think it's shift right clicking on it. It's some kind of right clicking on it. I think it's shift right clicking with an empty hand. We'll go over that, but do not worry. You need to make 2 of these. They function as both the receiver and the transmitter. So we're going to make 2 of those, and that comes in 1 craft. And I believe for the most part, that's pretty much it, other than the one other thing, which again, this one is going to be determined by the size of your farm. And it's actually, I should say, by how many piston extension poles you have. And the reason I say that is because we are going to want to make sure that the timing is proper for our piston to fully extend. Then it sends our redstone signal. Then when it retracts, it wants to be fully retracted before the redstone signal goes away. So we are going to be using an adjustable repeater for that. And for this setup, it's going to be set to 8 seconds. So it is nighttime out, so we should sleep before we actually go and work with this, but that should be pretty much everything that we need for this setup. I know that's a lot of stuff to go over, a lot of new stuff we're going to be working with, but all in all, it should not be too bad, and it really should turn out pretty awesome. So we can go outside now. Also, something I want to note while we're doing this is if you saw last episode, it turns out we are actually not done with our crushing wheel ore processing setup. We need to wash the crushed ore before we, well, I guess when you wash it, you get the nuggets and then you craft it. So we will be adjusting this soon, but I wanted to take a break from the ore processing stuff for a couple episodes before we jump back to it. It'll net us a little bit more, but I do want to say thank you to the people who commented that on the last episode. So right over here is where we're going to be setting this up, and there's nothing really fancy over here yet. I'm going to build stuff around it once we have it set up because it does take a relatively large area to set up. But what we really want to do is first determine where we want the farm itself to be. So we're going to be doing a 3x3 farm, and I think it's fine to say we want it to be probably right. Maybe move it back one, maybe like right here, like this. Now, again, you can make a much bigger area if you'd like. I'm not too concerned right now with harvesting a ton of wheat and using it for stuff. I just want to do this because it looks really cool. It's super fun to set up. But I may adjust this further depending on where we actually, Actually, you know what? No, we'll move it back one more. So like this. Now I know I'm going to have to set up water so that this actually stays like this. So what we're going to do right here is wherever you decide to set up your 3x3, we're going to take a bucket of water and we'll just put it down right here. Now that'll be fine. We can just make sure we re-till the soil here so that we actually can keep an eye on this. So this will be fine. Now what we need to do is, this is the collection point if you are curious, because basically when the mechanical harvester harvests things, it actually drops them on the ground. And as the pistons push it across, they're going to dump it in here, and then we will have this collected. You don't need water to be used here. You can use, conveyor belts. Something to keep in mind, though, that was brought up in, I want to say it was Mischief of Mice's video on this, where he has a very similar setup. It's a little bit different, but you need to pay attention to the fact that there is a lip right here when you till soil. And if you put down hoppers, there is the chance that items will get stuck on this lip and not actually go into the hopper. So if you drop it down one, you can put hoppers down. If you drop it into water, you can. Conveyor belts are fine, but it's kind of annoying having to provide rotational power for them. So your best bet is probably here to either drop it down one into hoppers or to use water. Or of course, if you have other mods, you have a lot of other options for collecting stuff, but just my professional opinion. And also I want to say thank you so much to his video because it was super helpful with figuring this out initially. His farm is a lot bigger and we do change a couple things though, but credit where credit is due, his videos are absolutely phenomenal. Okay, so now we actually need to get into setting the rest of this stuff up. And the reason I put this around here first is because you can set this up in kind of weird ways, but really we want to then set up the mechanical harvesters, which we can put right about, so they're going to, if you start right here, they'll get pushed 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, which is what we want because the mechanical harvesters don't count technically as a block as far as I'm aware. So that means we want our linear chassis to be right here. And you can actually only put these down when the chassis are there. So you can see this is what they look like. When this gets pushed forward, these will actually rotate. They do not require you to pump rotational power into them themselves, but when you push them forward like they're pushing on the ground, they rotate. That's what's going to collect the stuff. So we have our chassis here. And it's actually occurring to me now that I messed up one big thing first, which is this. If we do it like this will work perfectly fine the first go, but we need to put some slime balls on these so that they actually pull the mechanical harvesters back with them. So there we go. Next thing that we need to do is put down another linear chassis. This one does not need a slime ball on it over here. And that's because this one is the one that's going to have the piston attached to it. So we can actually craft the mechanical piston into a sticky mechanical piston and put it down back here. So this needs to stick to this though. Okay, so basically this is going to extend, all of these are going to extend, and then when it comes back, this needs to pull this back, which is attached to all of these, and those are attached to these. Now, something we do need to do is go in with a wrench, and you can see that this is the range. Really, there's no reason to not have it set at 1. If I could properly scroll on these, if we could scroll down, that's the range of like connected blocks to it. So there we go. And then what we need to do is dig out an area back here. If I have my shovel on me, dig out the area back here, and we're going to put down the piston extension tubes or poles. So these are going to go right out the back here, and we want to make sure we have room for all 5. So basically this is going to allow it to keep rotating and just kind of pull this through as it pushes it out. And that means we are going to have to put rotational power in right here. But the one last thing we need to do before that is add one more linear chassis. And this is so weird. I never knew this. So it does not consume a slime ball clicking it on these. Why is that? Can you make one like we did with the mechanical piston? No, that's so weird. It doesn't consume one. Huh. Interesting. I thought it was bugged or something visually. Okay, but what we need to do here is put down one last thing, which is the redstone contact. And we're going to put it down facing this way. You could actually put it down facing forward if you want. Really, it doesn't matter. However you choose to put it down. But what we need to then do is this is going to extend 5. So it's going to come up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is going to go here, which means the redstone contact other side needs to go right here. And basically what's going to happen is once this gets pushed all the way out, these are going to meet and create a redstone signal, which we are going to then take with the redstone link. And if we put it down, it should be able to get it just like this. If we were to come over here and break this, we can actually test it out. If we can orient these properly. I guess, can we shift click on that? Yeah, there we go. So this is how we can test it out actually. So you can see when they are facing each other, touching like that, it creates a redstone signal. Now, to set up the redstone link, we are going to use something like dirt. Now, this is the transmitter right here. It's got frequency 1, frequency 2. We're going to click some dirt on frequency 1, and then we can come over here. We'll put down the gearshift right there. And we'll put the encased fan and all that stuff down right back here in a second. But we can set up then the redstone link and we can put that down right here, and then shift right clicking. So this is how you can see that it is set to be the receiving end, is it gets this little dish right there over it. And if we were to put down dirt, you can see it now receives a redstone signal. Now we don't know if it needs to be oriented properly, but if we put down, it looks like it's getting a signal. Is it? I don't even know. Okay, there we go. So it is getting a signal. You need to make sure it's facing properly this direction so that it's pointing into it. And we're going to set this all the way up. You can scroll up in the delay, and we're going to do an 8-second delay. So 8 seconds for this should be perfect. So what we can do now is break the redstone contact, put it back down over here. You can see that this would last 8 seconds before it goes away, which is exactly what we want. That's the amount of time it's going to take for this to come back. And then we can actually set up the rotational power, and we should probably plant the 9 seeds first, like this. And we'll break this right here. And then once we actually set up the rotational power, that should be good. So we'll use a gearbox here. We'll have to see the way the rotation is initially going. But we'll set up the gearbox here, which means we can put the encased fan here and the magma block there. So I'll just come down right here to work with that. Now I want to see, actually, I know you can hold shift and place something down for most machines. Let's see if we can do it with this. Yep, there we go. So once we put down the lever, which is one of the things I dumped back in the chest at the beginning and forgot to grab back out. Okay, we'll grab that right now. The lever and the chest. We'll click this on and we'll get it going. Okay, so it's rotating. Now let's see if it goes the right way. When we put the gearbox on, I assume it is not rotating the correct way. If we were to break this gearbox. Yeah, so it's not rotating the correct way. So we have two options here. We can either invert it again or... yeah, pretty much. I don't feel like inverting the redstone signal for this. I'll just use 2 gearboxes from in here. That was my fear. When I tested it out, that did not happen. But I feared that that might happen here. So it happens sometimes. We can just quickly hop down here and move it over 1. Get down there. Get this, get that, grab that. And we can just move it over 1, which really does not matter at all, considering we are putting it directly behind the machine. So, encased fan, and then we'll do the first gearbox and then the second gearbox. Whoops. Like that. Like that. And we gotta flick the lever on. Okay, so now it should be rotating the proper way. If we were to throw the gear shift down on this, you can see it actually extends it. So it's going over, going over. Now, an important thing is you do not want these piston extension tubes to go over the farmland, because if it stops, it will destroy the land. So you do not want that to happen, but the rest of this can go over the farmland and it will be perfectly fine. Now you can see that the minute it gets back, the redstone signal goes away and it extends again. There is a wait while it is at the end here, but it's actually no issue at all. Now, you could probably get away with having this extend 1 less if you really wanted to, just because this should be sufficient to push the items off without having to go over it. But in terms of getting the timing and everything right, and making sure that, you know, there's no issues with the items, I push it completely over the water. But you can see now that I don't want to say it works perfectly, because there is a delay here at the end. If you guys have any suggestions on how to get rid of that delay at the end, I actually do not know. I know that you could probably set up a perfectly timed timer here that extends and retracts it without actually having the redstone contacts there at the end, if you did the calculations out or did experimental sort of trials to see exactly how long it takes to fully extend and pull it back, since it theoretically should be the same time and you just have it repeatedly switching. We could probably try and do that eventually, but this was a cool way to work with the wireless redstone and the redstone contacts, which I think are very useful when it comes to building machines like this. But honestly, guys, I think this is one of the coolest parts of the Create mod, mainly because look, like this right here, when you build this, you did this yourself. You're not following the crafting recipe for a single large scale machine. You're not following the blueprints for building something. You're deciding what you want to build. You're taking the building blocks to do it, and you're building it in whatever way you see fit for what you want it to do. So what we can do now is take some bone meal and put these into various stages of growth, just so that you guys can see what it will and will not harvest, and then what happens with the items. And something that we can do over here is, if we really wanted to, we could dig down, put our chest right here, and put a hopper right here into that chest so that the items actually get collected in there. So you can see once these are fully grown. So this one's almost fully grown. This one is fully grown. This one's partially grown. Some of these have no growth. When it ends up coming back and then pushing back over again, it will harvest that. It will replant the seeds. And you can see it only actually does it on when it's pushing, when these are actually rotating. But you can also see it breaks them. The items are being pushed across there. They fall in the water. They make their way into the chest. And the seed was replanted right where it was harvested from. So basically, we can just sit back and do nothing. And eventually we should automate what we actually do with the wheat. We don't really have any need for the seeds anymore because they're always being replanted. So those can eventually just be ditched. But the wheat itself, you can do further automation with that. So it may warrant a much larger farm, which eventually we'll probably get to. But for now, we're getting some stuff to make some food with. I'd like to also eventually try doing an automated animal farm, which would be really cool. But I wanted to try with regular automated farming for this. I know a lot of people love this, and I think it was super fun. So if you guys have any questions on this, since I know it is a little complicated, feel free to post them in the comments and I'll try and help you out, since it's not as simple as just making a machine and putting it down. But also, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I hope you guys are staying safe and healthy, and I will talk to you guys later.
Standing in a glass bowl at the end of a black hole, cold, lost and upside down. Faces swirling past me, all my memories rolling vastly.